Let's talk about Isaiah Pacheco reportedly being cleared for contact very soon, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes weighing in about camp so far, and then have a candid conversation about wide receiver Justyn Ross, who is consistently continuing to stand out, and why I think he's on the trajectory to making the 53-man roster. But first, how about those? First up, as far as the injury report is concerned, Kadarius Toney recently had a knee cleanup procedure and will be out until at least the beginning of the season. Mike Dana recently strained his calf and didn't practice today and hasn't in the last few days, as well as tight end Jody Fortson, who got his shoulder popped out of socket at practice last week. Thankfully, I don't think Fortson needs surgery or anything like that, and he should be back shortly. The question is, when exactly will he be back? Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they hold him out during the preseason, but we'll have to wait and see. L'Jarius Sneed is another guy held out today as he's been dealing with a sore knee and some swelling in that knee. And this is something that I believe has bothered Sneed off and on since last season and certainly during OTAs this year. They've been having him even on a snap count at training camp, and he hasn't practiced a couple days. It's worth monitoring, and I hope he heals up here before the start of the season, especially considering this is a contract year for him, so he's going to want to ball out for sure. Andy Reid also added to the media today that Tommy Townsend has an ankle sprain, but it's not serious. It actually happened on this play here from Monday's practice. You can see him limping, and he did limp over to the medical tent, but came out shortly after. So thankfully, it's just a minor tweak. He was out there at practice today, but didn't kick. Tommy also has new representation. As it was announced last night, he is now being represented by Drew Rosenhaus. So, it was definitely nice while it lasted, Tommy. Have a great one. Okay, I'm half trolling here, but for those of you wondering what the heck I'm even talking about, this is the same agent that Tyreek Hill has. You know, the guy who helped him get out of KC, which is fine. Drew is a popular agent known for getting money for the players he represents, which is his job, so nice. However, who knows what the future now holds for Tommy Townsend after this season? Time will surely tell. Next up, Pacheco is still out there in the yellow "Do Not Touch Me Ever" jersey as he works back from that off-season shoulder surgery. He could even be seen doing some rehab work near the end of practice. However, that rehab period may soon be coming to a close because James Palmer shared this today on Twitter. Quote, "From my understanding, Chiefs running back Isaiah Pacheco should be cleared for contact by the 20th of August. Hand is good. It's the shoulder that's left to be cleared." So that's great news for Pacheco, who is going to be very excited to hit people. And let's keep some good news rolling here because there was an exciting name that did practice today that hasn't in a while, and that is defensive tackle Turk Wharton. Turk Wharton was seen out there in uniform today, pads on, and did practice, which means he's off the PUP. I don't believe, though, he's yet a full participant, but it's a good sign for him in his ACL recovery as the Chiefs begin ramping him up. Andy Reid commented on Turk today, saying he has great quickness and strength and brings experience with him to the line. And as far as his projected return, Andy said, quote, "We just have to take it slow to make sure he stays okay and to ramp him up." So not a clear timeline yet, just taking things day by day. And then, of course, defensive tackle Chris Jones wasn't there either, though he's not injured, just still in some sort of contract talks amidst the reported stalemate they are in. That's Chris Jones and his agent and the Chiefs about how much money he's going to be getting in this extension. Hopefully a deal gets done sooner than later. I mean, it's been eerily quiet, though I would imagine both sides have been continuing to negotiate behind the scenes. And at this point, I still am confident a deal gets done, as is like 800 of you who voted in last night's live stream. There was like 70%, this is off the top of my head, 70% or something that still think a deal is going to get done. But at this point, with each passing day, my confidence does fade a bit slightly, but hopefully we hear something very soon. Mahomes was actually asked about Chris Jones today in his presser, and here's what he had to say.
I talked to Chris, not necessarily about contract stuff. That's how I am about all things. I never talk about the contract. I just talk about football, how he's doing. I mean, he's working out, he's staying in shape. All that will handle itself, and all I can do is just be supportive, be a teammate. I mean, that's one of the guys that's been a staple of this organization for a long time. So hopefully we get him back in camp as soon as possible.
Well, I think it's safe to say that all of Chiefs Kingdom would love to see him at camp ASAP as well. Patrick also shared about the competitive fire between the players at camp, even mentioning Kelce's confrontations.
Yeah, I think we all have it. We have a lot of guys out here that are super competitive, but it's about just doing it the right way. I mean, Trav punching the guy, not necessarily the way you want to do it, but you love the fire. You love the fire both sides of the ball of trying to finish to the last second. But I mean, that's just the type of guys we are. We're going to compete compete. We're going to argue out there on the football field, and then we're going to love each other in the locker room because we got a lot of dudes that are super competitive on this team.
And thankfully, it looks like there were no real scuffles today. However, it was reported that Travis Kelce caught a ball in 7-on-7 running into Jalen Watson, and as Kelce got up, safety Brian Cook slapped the ball out of his hand, which is pretty funny because if you remember, Brian Cook was also the guy that was there breaking up Travis Kelce and DiCaprio Bootle's scuffle last week. And from here, I want to talk about some standout plays from today's practice, including Deneric Prince, Nico Remigio, as well as Justyn Ross, and talk about why I think he's currently making the 53-man roster. But first, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Underdog Fantasy, the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports and the official fantasy sports company of the channel for the entire 2023 NFL season. Their app and website is super easy to use, and their biggest contest ever, Best Ball Mania 4, is a no-stress season-long draft with no waivers, trades, or lineups, setting you up for your shot at $15 million in total prizes and a first-place prize of $3 million. That's a lot of money. I also already have my way too early pre-game pick'ems for all NFL season picks, where you can choose between 2 and 5 players to win up to 20x on your money by picking higher or lower on your favorite player's stats. And if you aren't super confident, just turn on the pick'em insurance, which gives you a little wiggle room for your entries. But I'm definitely confident and higher on Mahomes' 37.5 touchdowns, the higher on Kelce catching more than 95.5 passes. And since Frank Clark is now a Bronco, we're going with the lower on 5.5 sacks for sure. Anyway, Underdog is available in many states across the US, but make sure to check out this map to see if you are in one of the eligible states. And then head on over to the Underdog website or app and use code HBTC at sign up to get your first deposit of up to $100 matched. And then it gets even better, because if you want to play against me in a private draft, I have a couple set up right now. There's a $10 entry 12-person draft and another $25 entry 10-person draft. Both are 18 rounds and a slow draft format that gives you hours to choose your pick. So there's plenty of time to decide and no pressure. And I have links to both of those private drafts, as well as my sign up link to Underdog in the description. But just remember to use code HBTC to get your first deposit of up to $100 matched. Next up, Andy Reid said today's practice was nice, the tempo was great, and it being a cooler day was a good break from the heat that has been around for most of the days. And as far as practice highlights and standouts go, let's look at the defense first. It looks like cornerback Nick Jones had a good day. He had a couple of PBUs and is getting some first team reps. Cornerback Reese Taylor had a couple splash plays. On one play, he reportedly even ripped the ball out from wide receiver Richie James. And with Mike Dana dealing with that calf strain, it looks like defensive end Joshua Kando is getting more reps in with the first team defense. I'm sure we will see him in action this preseason, and honestly, if he shows out enough, he could be one that actually sees playing time this year, depending on the depth of the line. I mean, they haven't brought in a veteran like Carlos Dunlap like they did last year, probably because they have no money, with Chris Jones still in extension negotiation talks, but worth mentioning, and it looks like a good showing there so far from Kando. Also, a few other defensive backs made some plays today. Jalen Watson had a nice pass breakup, punching the ball right out. Safety Mike Edwards dove to secure an INT from a pass that bounced out of the hands of Skyy Moore, with the ball hawk making yet another play. After that play, though, Skyy Moore was seen jogging off the field holding his hand, which was a cause for slight concern at first, but he ended up going back out there a few minutes later and appeared to be fine, so good. And then while Trent McDuffie did lose this rep against MBS, a solid route by Marquez certainly, McDuffie later picked off Mahomes on a slant route intended for MBS, making a nice move to get in front and make the play. McDuffie is someone who is always trying to get the best of Mahomes, a bit of a camp rivalry, if you will, as iron sharpens iron, and he certainly got him there on that play. The running backs also got some nice work in, and it was noted that CEH has shown some nice burst on run plays during 9-on-7. McKinnon had a nice catch and run on a dump off from Mahomes. Many more of that to follow this season, I can promise you that. And then for Deneric Prince, it was noted the Chiefs had a nice 15-play drive where many players touched the ball and ended with a Mahomes scramble and shovel pass to Deneric Prince. Prince could also be seen returning some kickoffs, which makes sense given Tobe recently said he's earned the nod as the team's first kick returner, at least for preseason. Patrick Mahomes complimented Prince as well today, saying he can catch the ball, runs really well, and is getting better with the protection stuff. Right now, it's just continuing to get Prince reps. Mahomes, though, is excited about the depth of the running back room overall this year. And speaking of returners, wide receiver Nico Remigio stock keeps going this way. He comes with return experience and is looking nice so far in the return game, has shown some rapport with Mahomes, and is also the guy who had that wild catch against L'Jarius Sneed last week. Well, today it was reported he caught a nice grab from Shane Buechele, and Nate Taylor said he needs more reps with the second team offense, which I took to mean Remigio has mainly been getting work in with the threes. Either way, it seems his stock is going up. The play of the day actually involved another pass from Shane Buechele to wide receiver Ty Fryfogle, who made a leaping grab down the right sideline one-on-one against Lamar Jackson. And yes, you heard that name right. Lamar Jackson, but the cornerback, not the quarterback. And with tight end Jody Fortson sidelined at the moment, Matt Bushman has been seeing more looks with the ones, catching pretty much everything thrown his way. And while he's been complimented as a nice route runner, Andy Reid did recently say in a presser he needs to work on his run blocking, but they are getting there with him. Another receiver who was recently praised by Andy Reid as someone who's very important to the team is Justyn Watson, who caught a great pass from Mahomes here as he was able to drop it in to double coverage for a completion. Nice snag there by Watson, but of course a nearly perfectly placed ball from Mahomes. One of several, or almost all of them, I guess, we've seen at training camp so far. And then on another play, Mahomes could once again be seen connecting with Justyn Ross on the outside, making a solid catch with Josh Williams close in coverage, as well as running this very clean looking route one-on-one against DiCaprio Bootle. And man, that boy looks good. He's continuing to get reps in with the ones, and he's certainly doing his best to take advantage of every opportunity given. Andy Reid said today that Ross is doing good. He had a nice offseason and is working his tail off here at camp. He just needs to keep doing it every day, but has the right mindset to do that. And Justyn Ross himself was interviewed by the media today, saying he's focused up, blocking out all the outside noise. He actually said he deleted his Twitter app, so he's not following any of the hype about him online. He just simply wants to stack good days up here at camp and, quote, whatever the future brings, I will be ready for it. When asked what he brings to the table in the Chiefs offense, Ross said he's explosive, a tall dude, can go after the jump ball, run pretty good routes. Quote, I can bring a lot to the table. He also has no doubt in his mind that if he makes the roster, he'll be up for the task physically, though he was a bit anxious, albeit excited, for the first day that the pads came on, considering it had been a couple years since really getting work in with pads and, you know, having contact with grown men out there on the field. And when asked what the first couple of hits felt like, here's what he had to say.
Yeah, and the first hit, the first couple pops,
beautiful. I love it. I couldn't wait.
Ross is more excited for preseason games to get into real game situations and show he can hold up through contact health-wise. And then Patrick Mahomes also weighed in on Ross today, saying he's had a good camp, and you can tell he's been here for a year now because he's learning the offense very quickly. He's making big plays and getting more involved in first-team reps. He's a guy that, quote, I got a lot of hope for that he can be a really good player in this offense. And all of this is exactly why we need to have a bit of a serious talk here about Justyn Ross. Many of you know I've been rooting for the guy, as everyone loves a good comeback story, but I did not have him on my initial 53-man roster projection I made back in June, with the caveat that I wanted to keep eyes on him throughout camp and preseason to see how his health holds up and how he looks when the pads come on. And I will say that so far, he's showing out more than any other receiver outside of my projected starting six, with those being Kadarius Toney, MVS, Skyy Moore, and Rashee Rice, all locks, as well as Richie James and Justyn Watson being most likely locks. The first four are here to stay, no question. Richie James is currently the only receiver outside of MVS to have over 500 yards in a season and is currently getting the nod from Dave Toub as the team's first punt returner. And then Justyn Watson signed a 2-year deal and recently was labeled as, quote, very important to the team by Andy Reid himself. However, Kadarius Toney getting injured 10 minutes into the first camp practice and needing knee surgery changes some things for me. I truly believe now the Chiefs could roll with 7 wide receivers on the 53-man roster for the first time in Andy Reid's tenure as head coach, with Toney then either going to IR for 4 weeks as they rest him up so they would quickly go to 6 wide receivers, or with Toney being on the roster and just not suiting up for the first couple of games. And that 7th receiver, in my opinion, is shaping up clearly to be Justyn Ross. Some wondered if it could be John Ross, but that man was dealing with Andy Reid's long practices in the heat, the humidity, getting work with the 2s and the 3s, and saw Justyn Ross working with the 1s and said, I'm freaking out of here. Maybe he used other words, but that's what I'm going to use. And again, outside of the 6 perceived to be locks I just mentioned, and Justyn Ross is getting the most looks from the ones from what I can tell. He keeps making standout plays like this one, leaving Nazeeh Johnson completely out of frame, and he's even been spotted working as a gunner and punt returner on special teams, which is indeed somewhere he may need to contribute. Special teams as one of the wide receivers near the bottom of the depth chart. At least that's how I have him, depth chart-wise, starting out. And if Tobe can carve out a role for him on teams, that's only going to help his case. Now, the question is, what happens when Kadarius Toney is healthy and returns remains to be seen. Someone may have to go, but who? Justyn Ross? Richie James? Justin Watson? Those are the only three I don't see as 100% locks at the moment. And unless more injuries in the wide receiver room pile up, I think we will have a nice battle on our hands heading into preseason and the season. And though I do currently have Justyn Ross making the 53-man roster, I'm going to taper my immediate expectations as far as production goes from him in the Chiefs offense, but I'm definitely rooting for him and excited to see him out there this preseason and rooting for him to show up, show out, and stay healthy, most importantly. And with all that being said, what is your current take on the Chiefs wide receiver room? Do you have the Chiefs rolling with 7 wide receivers for the initial 53? And if so, what do you personally think is going to happen once Kadarius Toney returns and is good to go? They keeping them all, somebody going, Justin Watson, Richie James, Justyn Ross. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?